All right, everybody. What's up? How you all doing? Nance, how you doing?
I'm doing great. It's been an awesome morning. We just spent some time having a great interview, and then we had some great conversation afterwards, and we accomplished some things that needed to be accomplished. So all in all, I'm doing great.
Yeah, and so we've got lots of really exciting news to share with you all. Yo, we've got people in the chat already. That's good to see. We've got lots of exciting news for everybody and several very interesting, innovative, cutting edge, theoretical kinds of concepts and research topics and things that we're working on. We're going to be getting to it and talking about all of that. But first, I got to go grab my coffee and we're going to let the stream warm up a little bit. So we're going to give people a little bit of time to get here. And so if you're already here, you're ahead of the curve. Just sit this one for a few minutes and we'll be right back. We're going to roll the PSA.
We cannot lay the foundation for it is to do what you are doing to move the underground. It's theoretically, we cannot do direct revolution, but the only way to lay the foundation for it is to do what you are doing to move the underground. It's a theoretically correct title.
Welcome to Theory Underground, a place for workers with earbuds who are tired of letting others read and think on their behalf, slipstreaming our way into an understanding of the situation that short circuits the deadlocks of our moment.
Research at Theory Underground focuses on what is most important for understanding our current situation: theory of the subject, capital, time-energy theory, critical media theory, CMT, and the most essential critiques necessary for understanding why the theory, ideology, and common sense of influencers left to right misses the mark.
Theory Underground is coming to a city near you. What that has meant in the last year is traveling across the United States, into Canada, and then all over Europe to promote our books, courses, and ideas related to time energy and underground theory. You've been reading Underground Theory.
I'm a publisher and an editor. I run and review books. Literally, it's my living. This is the best edited collection I've ever read.
Okay, picture the scene. America, early 2021. An Amazon warehouse worker arises from the emerging underground theory internet scene to create spaces for untimely topics and concerns that are too often neglected or kept in isolation today. Joined by a revolving cast of underground theorists, academics, and critics, he establishes what will become Theory Underground, a teaching, research, and publishing platform by and for working-class intellectuals, autodidacts, and academics who want to do more than they're able to do within the confines of academia. That warehouse worker's name is David McKerracher, and his book Time Energy is his first major contribution to the world of theory. It was recently reprinted with a foreword by none other than Slavoj Žižek, who also contributed to Theory Underground's latest book.
My Bible, it's an excellent book.
A collection of essays called Underground Theory.
What you just heard is an excerpt from the Strange Exiles podcast, episode 23, where Bram from Strange Exiles interviewed me and Mikey. For those who don't know, Mikey is the author of the Dangerous Maybe blog. We are publishing one of his books here shortly at Theory Underground. He's also a lecturer at Theory Underground, and he's someone I've been friends and a collaborator with for over 10 years. But most importantly for you all, he's a fantastic lecturer, and it's a crime that he has to do wage labor right now. One of the long-term goals of Theory Underground has been now for a couple of years to hashtag free Mikey. That is something that I've been really pushing, but first I had to get freed from wage labor, which was achieved this year. That's right. Thanks to my monthly seminar subscribers, I was able to quit Amazon and do Theory Underground full time. Now I'm announcing the next big phase of the plan, which is the Mikey Down seminar. What monthly subscribers to the Mikey seminar are paying for is a survey of philosophy, including deep dives into Zizek, Land, Lacan, Baudrillard, Bataille, Lyotard, and ultimately the whole history of philosophy.
We're trying to build like this ongoing seminar, right? And that's what I really like about this thing, where, you know, if I'm teaching a main text, that's something I got to focus on. I got to really, but the seminar thing, we can do this stuff all the time where we dive deeper into concepts, we dive deeper into certain, sections of books or whatever, and we can really do this nuanced stuff.
I think that there's probably no better way for us to accelerate our learning in these areas than by slipstreaming Mikey. And that has been my belief for years and years and years now. It's official. You're able to help out. You're able to get involved. You're able to benefit directly from liberating him from wage labor. Get on it right now. Do it. Just go. Stop what you're doing. Go click the button, subscribe. This is what you do. Subscribe to him. If you're already signed up for the ongoing Theory Underground seminars, then that's the ones that I do with my wife, Anne. Though that's getting an upgrade, which means that I will be doing one session per month that is just me, and then I will also be doing the ones with Anne, which are a crash course in sociology, anthropology, the social sciences, and ultimately Marx, Heidegger, Levinas, Bourdieu, imminently critiquing pop psychology, sociology, self-help, and ultimately the doxa of our time. But if you would like to be a subscriber to both Mikey's seminar and the seminar that the Snellgrove McCarrickers are doing, then the best way is to become a Tier 4 subscriber, or you can be a Tier 2 subscriber to each of us. The reason this matters is because Tier 2 is like pretty much the best bang for your buck. It gives you huge discounts on all of the courses that we do. But if you can't afford it, Tier 4 is amazing because it gives you Tier 3 access at both Mikey's seminar and ours.
And finally, not everybody has time to be part of these ongoing research seminars, and they just want to fund the paid content for the YouTube and podcast. And so thank you so much to our patrons over at Patreon. They're the ones funding all the free stuff, so big thank you to Bert, Marilyn, Carl, Sahil, Zozandra, Nikolai, Darian, Tyler, and Mandeep, and all the other wonderful patron people. Patreon people. And thank you to all the other wonderful Patreon people. Thank you so much to all of you patrons, and also to the special subscribers and the paying subscribers. Oh my god! It's just so awkward. Thank you, Patreon. Patrons. Thank you, okay. And to all the other wonderful patrons. Thank you so much, all you patrons. And also a special thanks to the subscribers on the YouTube side, as well as the paying subscribers over at Substack. Why can't we do this? Fucked. You guys, please. Just thank you. Thank you, everyone, for making this bullshit possible. Thank you to the subscribers. You did so good. Thanks, guys.
All right, we're live. We're here. We're here. The screen might look dark and like there's no one here, but we're actually here. What's up, everybody? How you all doing today? Nance, how you doing?
Doing great, man.
Sweet. I've got the screen off because I'm still rendering that video. But hey, it looks like I'm back. So my computer is throttled. It's become an issue recently, where my CPU is maxing out and then things lag out. And so it seems like it's time maybe for an update, but let's get this thing going here. I'm going to pull it up so that we can see you. Hey, hello everybody. Now you can see us. What's up? How's it going? All right, let's get in the chat. See what's up in the chat. We got Chapter Black in the chat. How's it going, Chapter? Who else do we have here? Everybody go ahead and let us know if you're here. I know that there's like 11 of you. There'll probably be 20 of you in the next 5 minutes. So we're just going to go ahead and engage the chat for a minute, and then we'll start touching on the title of this stream and getting into some stuff. And so, yeah, Happy65 says, Profilicity? Is that from Carefree Wandering? Nance, you want to talk while I make a poll?
Yeah. this morning. Well, I guess it was this morning from our perspective, and it was this evening from our friends on the other side of the planet's perspective. But just a few hours ago, we talked to Professor Hans-Georg Mueller. That interview will be premiered soon on the channel, and I'm looking forward to the next time we get to talk to him, because it was a great conversation. But it definitely kind of overflowed itself. I wanted to keep going for hours on end. But yes, it is indeed from Carefree Wandering. We just spoke to the man himself. And it was amazing. It was great. He's a great guy, personality-wise. And also, like, theoretically, academically, intellectually, he's a titan. He's a titan among children. And it's great to have him on. And yeah, we were kind of talking about the dynamics of like all the other people that have been on and we've spoken with. And it is kind of a conspicuous like absence. And the fact that he finally made it here is amazing. So I'm looking forward to interacting with other people who know his work well, because I think it's fascinating. And it's not just Lumen. Like those of you who know his work know he's good at many other things. He, over here at least, I think he gets known as, or he gets labeled as the Lumen guy, because that's maybe like his point of ingress into Theory Underground was via Lumen. But he's also an expert on Hegel. He's also an expert on, I mean, he would tell you he's not an expert on Marx, but he definitely knows his Marx. And lots of other awesome shit. Let's see what this poll says. Are you aware of how much hitting the like button helps us be seen by people who like content like you? Are you? That's a genuine question. I hope that one guy or gal isn't in the live chat right now and they're going to be like, oh, these stupid polls. You're an evil vampire, Dave. Stop doing polls.
There was a person who said that. I don't know. They didn't call me a vampire, but the rest of that was accurate. Yeah. Look, if you don't like the internet, you should get off of it. That's kind of what it boils down to. It's like what you've got a problem with is not us using the medium. What you've got a problem with is the medium itself.
The medium using you.
You know, yeah, but if you wanna hate the game, why you gotta hate on the player? There are no players who have as much expertise in knowing how bad and good the tendencies of this medium can be than us. Like we have been researching this for a year and a half at Theory Underground with the critical media theory, ongoing research seminar, everything we do with the actual worldwide touring and the books and all of the stuff that we do to break out of the medium or to use various aspects of the medium against its worst tendencies and for its better tendencies is deliberate theoretical praxis. And nobody's cooler than we are when it comes to this little thing. You're all way cooler than us in almost every other way, but I just wanted you to know when it comes to who's too cool for school and what actually counts as being cool, we're here to tell you we've got some shit figured out, and you're not going to be more authentic, and you don't get away with being ironically distanced by simply not smashing a like. Like that's, in fact,
it actually hinders you. It hobbles you in your experience because it keeps, like, you can't outsmart the algorithm. I've seen a lot of channels on YouTube that talk about like mastering the algorithm and shit. And maybe that was possible at one point, but it has become so complex. It is at this point, it is a black box. And yes, it's important to be critical and it is important to maintain some distance. However, like there are ways that you can interact with it to tune it to your preferences. And it's both like overt, like explicit and implicit. And doing the things, hitting the like, hitting the subscribe and interacting as if you are an enthusiastic supporter will give you more of what you want to see. And that is true. Yeah. So you can either sit back and be a hate watcher and kind of like outsmart everybody and, you know, never genuinely engage, But that's like a miserable way to go about the world. Think about the guy at the back of the classroom who's like, he's just cooler than everyone, but really he's not cool because he like picks his nose and he eats his boogers and he kind of smells bad, but he thinks he's cooler than everyone. And he maintains this kind of ironic distance from the rest of the class. Like you're being that guy when you're like, oh, I'm not gonna do the things. I'm not gonna fall prey to your little evil tricks. You're only hurting yourself, dude. You're only like intensifying the isolation that you already feel. And we are aware of that isolation. We are aware of that atomization, and we're trying to embrace it in a way that actually allows us to like combat it. Because it's not total. It may feel total. It may feel like we've already lost the war, but in fact, we haven't, because we are still here and we are still using our discernment and our agency to do silly, fun things. And also, we don't eat our boogers. So stop doing that.
Yeah. And take a shower. All right. And so the Riley 5000 said, just smash the like button. So thank you to Riley. Chapter Black said, polls are pretty bourgeois, comrade. I'm a hipster like that. I smash the dislike like it is opposite day. Good job, Chapter. That's still the kind, I mean, that's still engagement, you know?
Yeah.
And look, at the end of the day, we don't really care. But at the same time, it has been a sort of recent theme, the sort of meta conversation of like, why do we feel that resistance, and why do we feel like it is resistance? It's like a cheap sort of pseudo resistance to consume something and act like you're not consuming it. And it's like, it's kind of like if you listen to Taylor Swift, but you've got ironic distance from it, and you're like, I'm not really a Swiftie, but you can't stop listening to Taylor Swift, and you can't stop like following everything going on with Taylor. But then you're like looking over at all these people who are just like unapologetically enthusiastic, and you're like, idiots. And it's like, you're doing it too. Why can't you just enjoy it?
Yeah.
Just have fun. You just get over it. You're not going to change the situation in any meaningful way by being a hater. All right. But with that said, that's obviously there is like this sort of algorithmically incentivized sort of imperative for us to have that meta conversation with you all, to train you all, to mold yourselves to the requirements of the platform, for it to get you more invested. But also, like we're saying, you're already here. You're already invested. The only way that you can really break out of it, as far as we're concerned, is by finding a new way to do something with it. And so if we're reading books to you on this platform, that is in a sort of sense going against the medium. It's not something that we are algorithmically incentivized to do. A lot of the stuff that we have done, whether it's reading Capital or Lumen, or we got a bunch of stuff that I've been meaning to publish, including recently when we were in Europe, we read the entirety of this work, In the Shadow of the Silent Majorities by Jean Baudrillard, which is relevant to everything we've been talking about with the post-class fractured mass, which has become super central to everything we're doing with critical media theory, critical doxology, and time energy, as well as just like in passing, because it's become central for us, we'll reference it, and then we'll have people reach out to us to be like, hey, where have you talked about that? Right? And at the point that you have people reaching out and saying, where have you talked about that? Obviously, you've heard us talk about that. You're looking for a more theoretically based unpacking of that. Well, it's something that the subscribers at TU have access to. But even then, I've had subscribers reach out and say, where do you guys actually unpack that? And so it's like, I think mostly this year in CMT, like that's where. And so really there's like 6 episodes to this year's CMT, and it's lectures that I do with Anne, and Nance is there. Other people are there. We have a guest lecture from Michael Downs, where he brings in Debord and Baudrillard. So, and Baudrillard is instrumental to it. And we get into it in that interview that we just did with Dr. Moeller. but we'll get into that. We'll talk a little bit more about what it is and why it matters. But I also want to just say shout out to the Swoletariat. He's like talking about how he wants to bring me on his channel and like actually interview us about the concept, because I mean it's obviously sticking in his head. Like he can't stop thinking about it as a Marxist. It's like, yeah, as soon as people start talking about the post-class fractured mass, it's like you're going to tune in, you're going to go, wait, what? And I guess I want to preface that whole conversation by saying it's not to say that class in a meaningful sense doesn't exist, but it is to say that class in one of the mainstream standard senses that it gets used, whether by Bernie-crats or by Marxists, is wrong or outdated. And that's not an ontological certitude where we have the epistemic hubris to say we know that for certain. That's not the point at all. It's an operating assumption that is based in a decade of theory and practice and watching other people chase windmills and being aware that we've been doing a lot of that ourselves, and in this very moment might be doing more of that. And we're trying to come to terms with that and figure out, okay, what's a way of breaking out of chasing windmills? And what are ways that we thought that we were breaking out of that where we weren't really, right? And that's why we're just kind of post irony when it comes to like, follow, subscribe. It's because like that's like a low stakes way of stop resisting the tendencies of the algorithm where it doesn't make a difference. But let's think about where we can resist in a way that does make a difference. And so that's one of my presentations at TUCON 2024, which is October 24th through 27th, is going to be on that specifically. I just submitted my proposal. It's up on the forum. Other presenters and attendees on the forum should be able to see what I'll be talking about. But basically, harnessing versus countering tendencies in the medium. And that being a strategic, practical, as well as theoretical way of breaking out of the absolute dead end of pessimism versus optimism concerning the medium. Anything you want to hit on that, Nance? Or fuck, I can't talk.
Yeah, I think like we're
anything
already...
you want to talk on that?
I think that was good. You talk good. It's we're already swimming in the ocean, and we can deny it, and we can try to hoodwink ourselves into thinking like, no, we're not, saturated. We're not doing this, but like just embracing it and accepting it and saying, no, I'm in the ocean and I am going to try to like, I don't know, grow fins so I can swim faster and like find the currents so I can actually get to where I want to go. Like it is this pessimism, optimism. It's like, no. Like don't totalize it. Just be like, this is where we are. And there is somewhere else that I want to get to. And I'm trying to figure out if I can get there. And I'm trying to figure out if I can, then how might I get there? And yeah, like the other day we were talking about like parasociality and there's so much going on with medium and how we're all situated now. Like every single one of us has a unique world, has a singular world because of our media environment. Like everything is pointing inwards back at us. And if you just kind of go through the world on autopilot, on default mode, everything is going to be pointing at an empty shell. And we're actually trying to say, okay, everything is pointing at us. Most things are pointing at us in an attempt to like harvest value from us in this productive consumptive sense or productive consumption sense. And there's some things you just can't escape. And it's like, well, I can't escape that. I'm going to stop trying to fight that because it is a fucking failure. I'm doing a hypostition. I'm setting myself up to fail just so I can sit back and complain. And I like complaining, but I also like efficacy. So I want to find a way to, spend some time complaining, but spend hopefully more time actually being efficacious in my attempts to escape the horrible world. Like we all know it's not a statement to be like the world's fucked up. that is just like an assumption. Like being a 21st century digital boy or girl or non-specified, like the world is fucked up for you. And like there are some people who think that's radical. Like, no, the world actually sucks. And it's like, yeah, dude, we get it. I think it might be radical to say maybe there's like a shining light off in the distance that we can see, and that there is maybe a path to that might be radical, or I don't know, maybe
Dude,
that's also not.
It's almost like saying that the pessimist is the mirror of the optimist. You have to kill the optimist in your head. And if you are thinking that, oh yeah, I've totally killed the optimist in my head, and that's why I argue with people that we're doomed, it's like, no, because the optimist in your head is why you keep thinking you have to perform this ritual or rite of like, oh no, actually it's bad. It's like, because what? Is it because you have a parent and that parent keeps telling you that you have a future and everything's going to be okay? Why are you orienting your entire discourse to your parent? And then of course, maybe it's not like your literal like parent, but it's like, it is sort of this weird Oedipal thing. It's like, just stop trying to convince the person who's not even in the room with us. We get it. And so I get it. We are also right now doing this performance, but we are also trying to sort of usher ourselves beyond it. And so I think that this kind of paves the way for hitting on the idea of profilicity. And there's a couple things that I think hitting on the idea of profilicity makes it possible to talk about here. It's going to pave the way for talking about why we are, as post-class fractured mass or PFMC pilled theorists, looking towards a decade of research in what we're calling alien anthropology. But to get there, let's take a little stop along the journey. Now, we'll allow you, of course, to hear Muller talk about profilicity. Obviously, if you are already a carefree wandering fan, you should already be very familiar with the concept. If you've never subscribed to that channel, well, then fucking get on it. But if you've read his book, then you are especially acquainted with the term. But maybe you are, like me, a little less inducted into the idea, and you're going to really benefit from seeing our interview with him, where he really does break it down in some really interesting ways. And I think that I'm really happy with the way that interview just went, and so we're excited to share that with you all within the next week's time. But of course, we've got a couple things we've got to release between now and then, including this conversation with Terence on Lyotard, Serre, and Latour, right? He talks about these three lesser known French theorists and the three phases of their work. And that video will be premiering at the end of our live stream today. We're going to redirect today's audience into that live stream, just trying to be efficient and smart with how we get your attention and then direct it towards stuff that we've already done. And then we'll be in the premiere chat on and off over the next hour of that video with Terence. And if you don't already know about Lyotard or Serre or Latour or all three, you're going to fucking love it. But that is one of the videos that has to be released this week before we can get to the Muller interview. We also have to premiere the Catrone Part 2 from the MSTU. We got to get people aware and planning for the upcoming Introduction to Marxism course that Catrone is teaching here at Theory Underground. We've got a lot of people very excited about that, and it's a pretty cheap course. And so, we're making it available. People will go, oh, well, why don't you just give it for free? Yeah, well, getting some buy-in and giving some compensation to the organizers as well as the actual professor, that matters. But also creating a container that functions as a filter to get more serious people into a room where they can actually all have time to take turns asking real questions. Like, that kind of stuff matters. But a lot of the stuff that does happen in those filtered containers at TU in the form of courses or seminars does get re-released later. And that gets me to the third thing that has to be released this week before you'll see the Muller interview. And that is the first in the series of lectures that I did on Totality and Infinity by Emmanuel Levinas. I'll be releasing the first lecture in that series. It assumes that you've not done the reading and that you don't really know anything about him. And that's how all the lectures I'll be releasing on Levinas over the next month to, I guess between now and December is when I plan on releasing all of those different lectures. I'm not releasing the deep dives that I do on Thursday evenings, and I'm not releasing the tarrying with the text segments, because basically during the Totality and Infinity course here at Theory Underground, for the last couple months, ever since the end of July, I was doing these lectures on Totality and Infinity, followed by deep dives where I went over all of my notes with the very serious students who were also doing the reading. And then the following day, we would do a tearing with the text with Terrence, where we were going into translation notes and questions concerning translation. And the thing is that's a lot of deep dive stuff that requires having a lot of investment, skin in the game, like you really care about it. So I'm not going to release all that stuff. That stuff's just for the people who really want to get to know this text. But for people who are just trying to get like a sort of orientation, or kind of like dipping your toes into the water and kind of getting a sense for really what's going on there, there's a whole series, 5 lectures that I'm going to be releasing for free. Right. And so I think that that's going to be amazing, because Levinas is not very well known in the theory scene. And insofar as he is, it's kind of a lame Levinas, like a defanged Levinas, a Levinas that is less problematic and totally just appropriated to a social justice project, which is fine. I mean, appropriate him to whatever you want to do. But the reason that I really want to give the devil his due is because he is actually problematic in a way that should be something you actually tarry with, not in a way where you just go, oh, that's problematic, I'll move on. No, you should actually sit with that and really think it through, because he might be right. And that was our approach to Heidegger as well, right? And so Levinas might be one of the most profound and definitely the most morally profound critics of the Heideggerian project, but he himself also comes under fire by the woke mob today. And so we really want to tarry with his critique of Heidegger, but also those aspects of his project that might be a little unsettling for people who are used to having everything packaged in a way that checks all the boxes for the DEI specialists. So anything you want to say about Levinas before we turn it back over to Profilicity here, Nance?
Yeah, I love Levinas. And Levinas was one of those names that for, I don't know, maybe a decade, like I heard it and I recognized it, and I kind of had like a superficial guess at what was really going on. But actually going through Totality and Infinity and actually like seriously reading it, there's a part of me that feels a little vindicated, because I was like, okay, so I was right about this. But there's a larger part of me that's like, whoa, I had no fucking idea that this is actually what's going on. And similar to when we went through Heidegger and we did this like super deep dive, super like deconstruction almost of Heidegger, but not for just to do it, not for the sake of deconstructing, for the sake of actually understanding and utilizing that in a robust worldview. Like that was revelatory. Same thing with Levinas. And like now, I don't want to be like, now I'm a Levinasian, but like I'm like, dude, there's so much in Levinas that I believe is correct. There's so much, almost as much as Marx, I would say. Like how in Marx there's just so much that even though I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, I'm a Marxist, like I do think I approach the world like in a Marxist or Marxian way, because I think he's just right about so many things. Levinas also, I think, is just right about so many things. And I think he, in his response to Heidegger, it rescues the spirit of humanity, because Heidegger did this weird deconstruction of the spirit of humanity that would kind of leave you bereft of I guess ethics, right? And then Levinas comes around and really says, you know, hope is not lost, and breaks it all down and lays it out. Yeah, dude, I think the approach to Heidegger, then Levinas, like your approach it's necessary and it's fucking spot on. Anyone out there who's curious, you may have heard these names tossed around. You may think of yourself as like an understander of things. Do it, get in there and actually come to terms with these texts, grapple with them. It's fucking amazing.
Yeah. And so for the people who are like, I don't have the time for that, but I am interested, or if you don't have the money for that, but you are interested, I mean, outside of the fact that you don't need money for that because we do have a scholarship program, but, some people just can't bring themselves to filling out paperwork, or, whether it's a pride thing or a time thing. Like for me, it's always just like, I hate paperwork. So I get it, even though it's a simple form to fill out. Some people just don't want to do it. If you've been waiting, is what I'm trying to say. If you've been waiting, well, don't worry, it's coming. And so we're really excited to announce that the Levinas stuff is coming out. And this is kind of like, you're going to get some theoretical concepts listening to today's stream, but you're also going to get basically like a newsletter update, right? And so shout out to my patrons, shout out to my subscribers, shout out to all the people who are making this possible. You guys are absolutely amazing. I know I promised that I'll do like these monthly newsletters. I never actually do them. Instead, you get a ton of content that comes from me productively procrastinating from doing fucking newsletters, right? And for all the people who've emailed me who I've not responded to, I just want to say, I don't know if you've seen anywhere, but I do have some copy to the effect that I am not in the underground to be the underground geek squad or administrative assistant. I am in the underground to be doing research and experiments with the medium. And so if you didn't get a response to an email, after a certain point, just realize I'm bad at it and send me a response and be sympathetic to the fact that this is not my real job. And if you want to make it my real job, I'll just refund you and we don't need to talk, because I just don't want your money if you're going to try to hold me to some customer service ethic criterion. Like, I get it at a certain level. I'm not trying to be unprofessional. I do try to get back to you all in a meaningful and quick turnaround time, but also I do just need a ridiculous amount of slack to be able to do the things that I want to be able to do. But with that, if I haven't responded to you in 48 hours, chances are I just literally didn't see it. And so you can always send me a response, especially if it's been 2 weeks or more. So that's my little update in terms of people who are a little confused. Also, for people who've signed up and didn't get a welcome email, if you signed up as an actual website subscriber, not the fucking Substack. The Substack is just for people who want to fund the writing. But for people who are trying to get involved with the research seminar, if you actually have been left out of the loop, you're not getting the emails, well, then you need to hit me up. Or if you signed up and then you're like, where is all the stuff? And you're just trying to go through the website and you didn't look at your email, well, you actually have to look at the email. Right now, the whole thing is a big stinking mess. I actually hate it. It's the only thing that makes me want to quit. Like, literally, it's the website part of things drives me actually insane. It's like doing taxes at this point. And so the thing about taxes is it's once a year, but the headache or the toothache, the earache, some kind of ache that's chronic that makes you can't focus on anything else. But that ache is one that has been chronic throughout the last year and a half of Theory Underground's existence. And I used to spend a lot more time focusing on it and trying to make it work. And that was making it so I couldn't do as much of the things that I wanted to be able to do. Right. So I do appreciate everyone's patience. And I am in the actual market right now for programmers. I'm looking to hire a team of 2 part-time, $20 an hour. And preferably they're not going to be people who are here for the ideas. Are going to be people who are here because they are passionate about experimenting with the medium, which is ultimately what we want to talk about with alien anthropology and the post-class fractured mass and I said PFMC earlier, I think, but no, it's the post-class fractured mass,
PCFM.
PCFM. So yeah, the PCFM. We'll talk about what it means to be PCFM filled. And we'll talk about the general peer and second order observation in Lumen. But we also just kind of want to talk about the medium itself and how all of these things kind of fit together. And so TUCON 24 coming up really soon. We're really excited for everybody's presentations. We're excited for our own presentations. Some in the conversation I was having with Luke, our graphic designer, not responsible for 98% of the graphic design you've seen from TU. He's just, he did the American Idiots poster, and now he's doing the TUCON poster. He asked, so what's the goal of the conference, right? As part of like brainstorming the actual art. Because it's like, well, we want a mixed audience. We want people who are colleagues and fellow travelers, but we also want, just people who are at this kind of level of being students, as well as normies who kind of walked in not sure what to expect. Why do we want normies who walked in not sure what to expect? Like, what is the actual reasoning going into that? And so what I wanted to say about that really quick is that the normies who walk in, the reason they matter is because you'll actually see that in Waypoint, which was my first book. I say it in the introduction, basically. I'm giving myself 5 years to develop my own understanding of the situation and of these different theorists. And so Theory Underground is sort of a product of me building my own little accelerator machine for that process, my own research process. But also, it's about learning how to talk different. Learning how to talk in a way that doesn't come off like theory speak. And that's kind of easy for me because I spent a lot of time in the regular workforce doing construction and food service and warehouses and bullshit like that. And so it's like, that's kind of easy for me. But also, like, if you want to think on a higher level, there is this sort of like way of using jargon that accelerates and intensifies that process. But at the same time, it disenfranchises you and alienates you from your peers in the regular working class. And it's like, well, no, I don't want to just go off into theory land and never come back. I don't want to just live in a world with a bunch of Dungeons and Dragons for theory freaks, right? Like that's fine, but also we're interested in an approach that will help us figure out like what is the good life. Why don't we have it? And what are ways of affecting large-scale structural change that can get us there? And towards that end, we need a new approach, right? And so I spent like 2.5 hours talking about that on Sunday for the people who are monthly subscribers to the website. Basically, that's sort of the motivation of like everything we're doing here. And it's a big part of why we're interested in not just like centering normies in this kind of casual, uncritical way where we just all assume we know what normies are like. Oh, normies don't like this, but they do like that. No, we're going to deconstruct our big others, but also our generic peers. We're going to deconstruct those by doing empirical research. And so we are in the process, the beginning process. The last 1.5 years is like the beginning stages of a process for what we call alien anthropology, which is going to be a lot of this empirical research that aims to deconstruct our big others and general peers. But also, we want to go beyond that deconstruction. And we're not just looking to analyze and sort of gather objective data on the people in our lives, whether we know them really well or not. We're also trying to go beyond all of that and actually get to figuring out what are the most effective ways of basically doing DIY or do-it-yourself. I don't want to say marketing, but like value awareness through the dissemination of concepts in a way that shows the existing system without any other theory to be unsatisfying, or non-feasible, not sustainable, however you want to put it. But the basic point is once you get time energy pilled and post-class fractured mass pilled, there's no going back. And it's not just for us, like I'm saying, like the cool kids who are into theory or whatever, but like figuring out ways of getting that to kind of spread in a way that it goes beyond us and what we think. And it goes beyond whether we think that change has to come from above or below. It goes beyond whether we think that change has to be rapid and fast or a slow process. It goes beyond those kind of stupid political, identitarian, strategy, practice questions and gets to the actual heart of the situation. All right, that's a lot. I know I'm just like water hosing you all here. I'm going to sit back and engage with the chat a little bit, but I'm checking back in with you now, Nance. What's up?
Yeah, I think the whole alien anthropology thing, like there's a large part of me, maybe the majority of me, I don't give a shit about what people think. Like there's such a, we'll call it desire to just sit back, read these books, become the understander of things, and like there's a part of me, like I get off on being this post-Marxist, whatever, post-left, something, but it's like, oh, I'm not falling for, the PMC fucking identity politics bullshit. I'm going to come back and I'm going to have a robust critical understanding, this and that. But what fucking good is that if I stay in my functional basement with no windows? I'm actually looking out the window at my neighbors walking their dogs, but functionally, we're trapped under ice. And if we just stay down here and never try to break the ice and go out into the world, then what the fuck are we doing? Like, this is just an elaborate way to cope with social anxiety at the end of the day, if I never actually go back out into the real world. So I think this not giving a shit about what people think is just, an elaborate coping mechanism for that social anxiety. It does in fact matter. Material conditions on the ground are the thing that at least in the message are what matter. But just sitting back and diving into old texts, while it's an ingredient in an appropriate approach to the world, it's not like, you can't just do that. You actually do have to get back out into the real world. And that's a challenge to me. Like it's just the other day, like we were saying, like, yeah, I don't care, but I know I need to care. And I am also aware of the fact that non-caring isn't real. Like that's me trying to trick myself into not actually caring, because I do care and it does matter. And I am aware of that. And it's a challenge. So like taking upon these challenges, I mean, it's kind of a part of everything we're doing, and we can challenge the systems and the structures that exist, and we can kind of challenge our context, but we also can't forget to challenge ourselves too, because we're not trying to have our cake and eat it. We're trying to find a new recipe for cake.
Yeah, and saying, oh, I don't care is, I mean, going back to sort of punk roots and hardcore, it's like saying I don't care about normal people's opinions, and it's like, well, then why is everything you do sort of like the mirror reverse or obverse of what this sort of idea of normal and or of what you think people are like? You can't tell me that you don't care if everything you're doing is sort of opposite day to this idea of normal. And you're like, oh no, I've deconstructed normal, there's no such thing. And it's like, yeah, but you got an idea of other people who believe in it. And so there's that second order observation. Let's use that to pivot to second order observation and Profilicity, just like we promised you all. Let's cash that out. So conceptually, what's going on there? What is second order observation to you, Nance?
So second order observation, and I conflate it with my own version of it. And I can't really escape that, but like second order observation is like observing the observers to determine, as what one does. Like it's you're not observing the ground and like trying to deal with and incorporate what you see. You're observing the people who are observing the ground, and you're trying to interpret their response to find the appropriate response. So it's like this Rube Goldberg mechanism for becoming Das Man, or the general other or whatever. And I do think with social media and with the way, like the new position of the subject in the media environment, I think it maybe even takes on a new meaning from what Luhmann is talking about, because Luhmann starts from like a very almost cybernetic position where he's talking about systems and like collections of systems, and There's no subject in Lumen. So it gets kind of weird when you're trying to take this really functional phenomenon of like behavior aping and you're trying to apply it to the subject. But it is this, like, instead of being in the world and just kind of acting appropriately, you're observing other people who you assume are in the world to try to figure out their idea of what is appropriate so that you can kind of fit in.
And the
it's
point is that this is the generalized normal kind of observation that we engage in. And so for a Husserl, or even to some degree a Heidegger, who does like lay the basis, I think, for thinking this way, there is still this first person standpoint. And so it's like, oh yeah, I think about, I perceive things, right? I'm a perceiving, cognizing cogito, right? Like I inhabit this first person standpoint, and then I have these intentional acts where I'm perceiving the coffee cup, I'm tasting it, perfect temperature, right? And that perception is what is usually the sort of starting and often end point of philosophy. Philosophy kind of like inhabits this solipsistic way, where even if you do bring in other subjects, right, and you're less solipsistic because you're like, oh, well, there's subjectivity, and then there's intersubjectivity because there's language, and so we're mediated, and we could easily deduce that we didn't create the language, and so, you know, that we're a part of that. Okay, cool. But also, it's not just like that you have like this first person standpoint. Actually, we have this second order observation thing. That's normal. And I think part of what Moeller is getting at, and I'm sorry, I feel so bad. I forget the name of his friend and colleague who wrote the book with him. But basically, second order standpoint in Nicholas Luhmann is sort of the basis upon which they're able to start thinking about the general peer. The general peer is very similar to the big other, but it's a lot more like the kind of big other that you're going to have in the post-class fractured mass PCFM. So we'll get into how the PCFM ties into the general peer, but first let's get a little deeper into second order observation. What's his name?
Paul D'Ambrosio.
Paul D'Ambrosio. We'll have to bring him on if we can at some point. That'd be amazing.
Excuse me, Paul. Yeah, Paul D'Ambrosio. Yeah. The you and your profile, identity after authenticity, is that text that is about profilicity, and it's about, like, it's interesting. You made the connection between the Peter Coffin book. What is it? Custom Reality and You. Yeah. And I think Muller and Ambrosio are taking up maybe a similar project to that, what Peter Coffin was trying to do, talking about like second order observation and like the location of the subject and Das Man and all this stuff. But it does seem like Muller and Ambrosio are, they're not saying, oh, this is all necessarily a bad thing. They're just saying, like, this is now the way the world works. And guess what? It can actually be constructive. Like, you being aware of how you construct your own identity in this way can actually, like, help rather than hinder. And I think the Coffin book, it's just critical. It's just saying this is bad. This is bad. I don't know. It's been a while since I read the Coffin book.
I'm going to go ahead and just be entirely unjust, but also maybe we can be a little bit more fair to Peter by saying, well, yeah, since we haven't done a serious study of the book, we just have video essays to go off of. And there was definitely a period in Coffin thought, we'll just say it that way, when it was like, oh, none of you are doing anything real. You're all just parts of consumer demographics. None of this is real. And so I think it's the saying none of this is real part that we're responding to by saying, no, yep. Profilicity breaks out of this authenticity framework. How does it do that, Nance?
It allows you to have some kind of like social efficacy, social identity. It allows you to have, and maybe it is just like a simulation, but nevertheless, it grants you a type of agency and a type of like interface with the world around you that is real, because the internet is real. Like, to just say this is not real, sure, it's not real in a sense, but also nothing is real in that same sense. If you're just gonna say all the stuff that happens online, on the internet, on social media isn't real, no, it is real. There are people who not only make a living online, but like learn and discover themselves and discover other people and actually go on to like impact the world in this way that is repeated, right? Because repetition also comes into play when we're talking about what is real and what isn't. But just sitting back and saying none of it's real is, I think, kind of like a disavowal of like just feeling helpless and hopeless and disempowered. Mueller is saying like, yeah, it's kind of valid to feel all these things, but you're not powerless. You can actually, like, this is real. This does come back to you. It does repeat itself. It does return, and it's concrete in a way that we have to accustom ourselves to. Like we have to adapt to the medium, because it is our new media environment. It is our new background. It's not just a thing that we do and we have to like, oh, I have to be aware of this. It is our new environment. So like actualizing in this way is real. It is you. I do come out on the internet through Profilicity in a way that it's real. Just because it's happening on the internet doesn't mean it's fake and should be thrown away. Like, if that were the case, what would I have?
It's
What would
kind of
anybody
like
have?
it's kind of like when Lacanians will talk about the big other is not real or does not exist, yet has reality, in the sense of like actually has something to do with your reality. The difference between the big other and the general peer at this sort of first pass, we'll get into more differences as our research develops, I'm sure, but the initial obvious difference between a pretty clearly class delineated society and being in this PCFM sort of situation is that in the pretty clearly delineated class society where there's a bourgeoisie and there's a proletariat, and you might be able to talk about the old aristocracy and the petty bourgeoisie and the lumpen proletariat. You might be able to add a little bit of nuance to it, but as long as you're working within that basic two-class theory and a sort of situation where it was kind of applicable, the big other is a lot more easy to like have a collective sense of, right? Like we collectively have a sense for this big other. Now, Michael Downs did this whole deep dive into the Russian doll effect of the big other and how there's many big others. There's big others within big others. We could do a sort of set theory of the big other. Okay, well, I don't see Lacanians talking about that normally, so that seems like, to me, a Michael Downsian update. Now, maybe it's technically there in like germ form, but what he does in that lecture, which was part of his seminar, part of my seminar, is he actually elaborates on it and adds some nice theoretical flourish. Well, yeah, well, if you're used to thinking of the big other, then thinking of it as a Russian doll is very helpful, right? Because then there would be the Russian doll, there would be the big other of America. There would be the big other of, I don't know, the fantasy football world and the Dungeons and Dragons world and all of these niche consumer demographics. right? And so then we could talk about these different big others. That's still not going to help because big other comes with it this sense that there is a correct way to do things. And the whole point of the general peer is that it's not just a socially averaged idea of what's right or wrong, but or of like law and norms, but also the general peer belongs to peer groups, in groups. But those in groups, when we're talking about the general peer, are anonymous. That's absolutely crucial in the sense that we never really know what it is that is normal, and we know that normal's bullshit, but we still have some kind of a sense that there are norms, right? So when we talk about everybody becoming more and more autistic, or we talk about this sort of breakdown in social etiquette, when there's not really an obviously perceivable right way of doing things, obviously what we're getting at is, on the one side, like people coming through like this sort of subjective destitution, this coming to terms with the death of the big other. But that would be different if it was just that. Instead, we are aware that the big other does not exist, and yet this general peer exists more strongly now than ever before. It did exist in the past, but now it exists more strongly than ever before. And that gets also to this point of generalized second order observation. We got Weird Solowski in the chat. We got Evan Wells in the chat. We got Chapter Black. We got Asafael Winter. What's up, everybody? How's it going? Good to see you all. We got lots of great engagement here. Solowski, always good to see you, man. Evan Wells says, later in Heidegger's last phase of philosophizing, he went way deep into digging to find the core of being. It became rather tedious and put a great emphasis on Greek language. Yeah, it's not my favorite. At the end of my journey with Heidegger, I was ripping my hair out and decided that more relativistic approaches are needed, which Heidegger somewhat had begun with. Right. Yeah, 100%. And I don't really care about late Heidegger. I just don't care. Right. I know like Richard Capobianco, he's just all about this sort of like the shimmering of being and shepherding being, and late Heidegger with the dew on the grass. And it's like this sort of secular spiritualized thing about like being receptive to the gods and all this bullshit. I couldn't care less, man. That is post psychotic break Heidegger, when he is trying to salvage his reputation after the sort of denazification trials. I don't trust anything from that Heidegger. I think the most interesting Heidegger is the radically skeptical theorist who was flirting with reactionary journals all through the 1920s. I think it's that very black-pilled post-World War I and worried about Soviet Russia thinker who is seriously responding to Das Kapital, but in his own roundabout way that is going to be illuminating for any sort of post-Marxian project. And so it's really the work that comes out of the 1920s era that makes me care. And really that obviously culminates in Being in Time. And then there's some really great essays after that. And then, of course, there's when he actually goes mask off and gives in to this sort of reactionary tendency that he had been flirting with. And when he goes all in, that's when you see the potential that was already there in Being in Time, and you see it come to a head. And so if you're interested in that reading of Being in Time, which is not this standard, oh, he's a bad Nazi. Oh, it's not the Faye Volin approach, but also it does learn from them without throwing the baby out with the bathwater. And at the same time, sort of engaging with the Hubert Dreyfus and William Blattner approach. Well, then you definitely want to check out the Being in Time course at Theory Underground that I've made available to anybody who's like a ongoing seminar researcher for me or Anne, right, at TU. With that, what do we need to? Is there anything else we gotta actually? I guess one thing about Profilicity I want to say though, bringing it back to that, is that Profilicity is just saying that authenticity has nothing to do with anything about the internet. Obviously, except for it's something that you maybe like people are attached to or whatever. But no, what the internet is for in terms of like being a user is curating a profile. And in that sense, it's like a more robust CV or credit score. That's all it is. That's all it is. Stop acting like it's something else. Nobody looks at your CV when you're going for a job and goes, oh, how authentic, right? Like that's stupid. Like that, oh, this is inauthentic. Who gives a shit? Even if you like, let's just say that you get a family member to pretend that they're your friend in your like recommendations, like, you know, your referral. Is that inauthentic of you? That's not even the question. That shouldn't even be that shouldn't even be clocking on your radar, man. And so the point with Profilicity is that this is all just experiments in curating our profile. Now, one thing that Hans-Georg Moeller, as well as Paul D. Ambrizio, both say is that sincerity still matters. Like, you can't really pull off your Profilicity if you're not like invested in it. You actually have to be like invested in it in some way. Like something like even J-Reg, as somebody who's like very ironic, he's still like sincerely ironic. Like you could tell that it comes out of his wrestling with identity and wrestling with like, what is all this that basically he as an artist has to flesh out. And that conversation is one that was in the last Epic Marathon live stream. It was really great. And so it'll be published here in the next couple of weeks as a standalone episode. But yeah, Profilicity. It's like, is it inauthentic to have tomatoes growing in your garden, in your front yard? If you wouldn't use that language, then maybe you shouldn't be using that language for like the internet thing. All right, that's kind of what I take it to be that they are getting at. What do you think about that, Nance?
I think, yeah, I think like it's maybe not like a method or a pathway to, but it has something to do with like actualization and sense of self. And if you can just realize, yeah, it's not about authenticity. It is about like, oh, this is me doing things in the world, and I don't have to try to construct this thing artificially. Like it is being constructed as I go through. And I think when we get confused and we're doing this, like the punk rock, like, oh, I'm more punk than you, or I'm more underground than you, or I'm cooler, or I'm smarter, or whatever. Like when we get trapped in that mode of trying to perform and like trying to outsmart it, it starts using us, and it starts tricking us. Like you can't outsmart it because it's not. I don't know. I think I'm excited to write about it because, like, over the past, I don't know, week or so, we've had conversations about value and exchange, and I think Profilicity plays a huge part in that. And I'm excited to write about how I think it's changed value in our relation to trying to use money. Like money doesn't work anymore. Money's insufficient as a mediator and adjudicator of exchange. And it's because there are these things that are called profiles, and we're being used by them. We're being led around by a lead, by the desire to be either more authentic than thou or perform. I don't do that type of thing because I'm cool and I've outsmarted it. That is still a position in reference to the kind of algorithm in the profile. And I think there's a middle way. I think there's a way. I mean, it is appropriate that Mueller's also big on Taoism, right? There is a way to kind of walk that tightrope.
what I really liked about him is that I shouldn't say that past tense, but like what I liked about the conversation with him earlier today, that's why it's past tense, is because, or is to say that he's a Stoic and a Taoist, but here's the thing. He's the only Stoic or Taoist that I've met and that I've engaged with who can talk about capitalism still in an intelligent way, who can still talk about the problems with things in an intelligent way, where it feels like most people who talk about Stoicism or Taoism, they're doing this sort of rich kid psychedelic babble bro bullshit thing where they are downplaying, dismissing, disavowing, and ultimately just ducking out of the serious confrontation with or tarrying with working through the actual situation. And it feels like he's not just pushing an escape hatch button, which is so often the case with Stoics and Taoists. And so if you're interested in leveling up your Stoic game or your Taoist game, if you're kind of attracted to that kind of approach, then definitely be checking out Carefree Wandering. On the note about money, we need it. So it turns out like the burritos that we like to buy cost money, and that's lame. But also I'm glad that the people who make the burritos aren't our slaves. And so them getting money is one step better than them being our slaves. And so, I mean, maybe I'd be for slavery if it was like the right people, but I don't have a problem with Mexicans, and I don't really want Mexicans as a group to be slaves. So I'm open to slavery if it's the right people, but like right now it's not. I don't like the idea of Mexicans being slaves, and so I am happy to pay them for making burritos. And in a similar sense, like we make things here at TU, and some people are happy to imagine that we're like their little slaves, but also we've got some amazing people who helped get us here to 12K and get all the stuff that we've got set up. And so thank you, all of you, for getting us to 12K and for making all this stuff possible. You guys are amazing. Seriously. It's tight. You guys are special. And so this is sort of like a 12K sort of recap, little newsletter update kind of stream that we're doing. And so, salute to you all. With that said, a lot of you are doing this for free, and that's great. And some people, they're not looking to do the ongoing research seminar, and so that they just do like a one-time donation, like once every couple of years. So to people like that, I just wanted to put out like this sort of call and say, with TUCON approaching really fast right now, with where we are with the experiment and the medium in terms of its development, we're officially at this point where, look, you might not have $1 million that you can give us. You might not be able to set up some kind of like a trust fund for TU or whatever. That's fine. We don't expect anything like that anytime soon until, of course, we can get the Soros or Teal bucks, preferably both. But for the time being, if you had a few grand you're sitting on and you're genuinely thinking about like, I want to throw this as something and see what cool shit happens, we're officially at a spot where, we need it. And part of the reason is because our mysterious funder who helped us when we were on tour, who paid for all of our tour costs, and also like the weird sort of the problems we ran into that required a little extra money along the way. If anybody saw that short, you know exactly what we're talking about. That mysterious funder is gone, is bye-bye. I don't know if we'll say anything about why, but for now, like just say that is gone. That cow is dried up. And the situation where we're at right now is wanting to do these experiments with the medium, as I've alluded to. And part of this is like figuring out a way to do a kind of analysis of or on the post-class fractured mass. And so I guess what we want to talk about is 24/7 IRL streaming. What is 24/7 IRL streaming? Why is nobody doing what we want to do, Nance? What is it about our situatedness, our theory and practice so far that has got us to a vantage where we are aware that we can do something that nobody else is doing? And why do we think that we should do it as a way of pushing the medium and also bettering ourselves and setting up this channel with even better content?
I think maybe part of the why do we see it, why don't other people see it, or at least why haven't we heard other people talking about it? I think it comes down to intentionality. Like this is not an exercise in just making content. Like it really is an attempt to come through whatever the fuck is going on and like land in a better place. And that's vague, and that sounds that almost sounds like one of those like vague buzzwordy type things, and maybe it is a little bit, but also like no, we're trying to do something with the medium that the medium is designed to stop from happening, and that is like being in the world with others. Like the medium is designed to individuate and to just keep us all in these little isolated singular worlds, and we're like, well, we don't want to do that. We want to get back out into a shared world with everyone else where we come to understand the situation, not like create our own fantasy situation. So I think there's the intention and just the experience, like having done what we've done has led us to see like, oh, we can't do what we want to do. We need to try something else.
And so with that said, basically 24/7 IRL streaming, the basic idea is, like Lo-Fi Girl. I'm sure everybody's seen that channel where there's like that girl, like an anime girl studying. She looks like she was probably done in the style of Studio Ghibli. And she's studying, doing her homework with a cat. And it's like a video on a loop where she's kind of just like turning pages and or writing, or I don't even know. And there's lo-fi music playing. And that was a 24/7 broadcast. It still is, I think. There's lots of channels that are like knockoff versions of this. Like Will Smith had his own, right? Well, the idea is a TU 24/7 stream. And the point of that is some people they get on YouTube and then they go, what they see is whatever's live, and then they'll click into it. It's not necessarily about what it is. It's like, it says something about their profilicity ultimately when they click on it. And they're more likely to click on that than they are to work their way through TU playlists, even though working your way through TU playlists is the best way to get oriented with the research topics and themes here at Theory Underground. And so what we want to do is have a 24/7 stream where we curate what is seen, and we have certain things that are played every 24 hours. And then we have other things that get swapped out over time. And so like I plan on having like a 1 month kind of playlist that is played through the 24/7 stream, where some of the stuff is every day, some of the stuff is once per week, some of the stuff is every other week, some of the stuff is once per month. And the stuff that is every day would be the most essential for getting a basis in the various research topics and themes at TU, or the basic concepts, right? This also gives us an amazing ability to, anytime we do a premiere, redirect the audience that has been accrued in the 24/7 stream into the premiere chat for the video that is premiering, meaning that it will significantly boost the reach of the videos that are being premiered. And then we can redirect at the end of the premiere right back into the new version of the 24/7 stream. And then we can direct those 24/7 streams into the epic marathon streams that we do, the M-Stews. And then we can direct that into other places. And so there are certain potential partnerships that we've been playing with in the background, people that we've been having conversations with, some of whom you all love and know very well. Others, maybe you don't even know about them. And the basic idea is like, we can kind of do what a lot of these big debate streamers figured out like 8 years ago, right? A lot of them come out of this sort of rating cyclone that was created on Twitch, where you would have somebody like Vosh start streaming at the end of a Destiny stream. And then of course you've got like these smaller satellites to a creator like that, who would then stream when that person's their schedule is usually coming to an end. And so like one audience would get redirected into the audience of another, and this creates like this cyclone effect. What we're thinking of doing is using the 24/7 streaming capability to create a sort of cyclone with other potential partners. And partner, I don't mean this in some kind of like a corporate official sense. Like this would be a lot more like underground and kind of loosey-goosey and kind of experimenting as we go. Like we plan on probably doing something like that with Cadell Last, a Philosophy Portal, just as an example, right? So the idea would be we do an M-stew, and then that raids into a Cadell stream, and then Cadell does a stream, and then that raids back into us. And if we had like a few 24/7 things going, you could see how like there could be some kind of a circuit that builds over time. Winston in the background. I see you, bud. Aw, what a good dog.
He's making a bunch of noise. He wants to be a streamer.
We can't hear him, but I wish we could.
He can't talk. Funnily enough, he's a stupid dog. He can't talk.
Son of a
He has
bitch.
nothing to say other than he loves barking. I mean, that actually, maybe that could be like a whole hour of just Winston barking. That would be an example of the type of dope content you could see on the 24/7 broadcast.
Mm-hmm. So how would IRL streaming tie into the 24/7 streaming? That's the missing element here. And then we have to talk about like what is the money situation? Why is it that we haven't already done this? Yeah.
So along with on that 24-hour broadcast, that it's, collaborators working together to kind of get that cyclone going, that churn going. I like to think of it as a pirate broadcast. Like essentially it would be like, no, we're hijacking the airwaves. And not literally, of course, because these platforms exist, but the way we want to use it, like we want to hijack the tendencies and the currents on these already existing platforms and functionalities. And through doing that, hope to create something new. And, maybe in 10 years, there will be a platform designed for what we're trying to do, because we're coming up against a bunch of roadblocks. Every time let's do this, there's like, oh, but this, and there's months and months and months of like frustration trying to figure it out. Anyway, all that said, we also want to incorporate IRL streaming so we can have this broadcast going on, and we can incorporate the physical world, what a lot of people still call the real world, but we know that just because it's physical doesn't make it more real than what is virtual. We know they're both co-equal in their realness, but we want to incorporate the ability to be out in the world. Like I want to be skateboarding,
right,
and studying Levinas, studying Latour, like studying this, because I do that. Like when I'm out skateboarding, I'm already listening, I'm already studying, but I'm not sharing that with anybody. And it's like, in a sense, it can be another like individuating force if that's all I ever do. Being able to come to Theory Underground and work with others and stuff overcomes that. And incorporating IRL streaming is just an intensification of that like collaboration, that working in concert with others. And also it demonstrates to other people, to people who just sit back and watch, people who haven't been in any of the courses, or maybe it'll encourage them too, but to show you that you don't have to just be sitting and listening passively to whatever content. Like you can be out in the world and incorporating study and critical thought into your daily life, be it skateboarding, hiking, doing jujitsu, grocery shopping, and also to serve as like a venue to highlight alien anthropology, maybe talking to other people, maybe doing the thing where the kick streamer stops the person and he's like, you know, gay son or thought daughter. But instead of gay son or thought daughter, we'd be like Levinas or Heidegger. And, you know, and they'd be like, what? And that would give us an opportunity to practice speaking to regular, normal people.
I hate the idea that we would think we're actually practicing talking to normal people by doing it on camera. But
yeah,
like that's the most, that'd be the most autistic thing we've ever done. But there is something, yeah, we're having conversations with normal people, Heidegger or Levinas. Yeah. But
yeah,
with that
but no,
said,
there's a way to go about being normal that like when I go skateboarding, there's dudes I go skateboard with, and we always wind up talking about big ideas. It always comes back to big ideas and philosophy. And I listen to them tell me about their third eye and their mandalas and their what's the word, psychedelic shit. And they listen to me talk about critical theory and deconstruction and this and that. And we share, and having the IRL streaming demonstrates to people that it is possible. Yeah, we can, you know, make fun and take the piss and stuff, but no, there is something that we are missing out on when we spend all our time in our offices. But we don't spend all our time in our offices. The people that are seeing this right now, you guys only ever see us in here. But trust me, I go outside. I do cool shit.
No, I think that's part of the issue is like, it's like we don't want to be micro influencers or micro celebs, but the medium forces that to some extent. And it's like, okay, well, what it's currently encouraging you all to do is sit around. And we don't like sitting around. I don't like doing epic marathon streams sitting in one place all day. I have gone on runs during epic marathon streams. Those don't happen on stream though. Those could happen on stream. Instead, they're happening in the background. Same with like if I'm riding my bicycle, or now I got a moped. Hey! Really stoked about having a moped now, by the way. I've been trying to get one for a long time. And the one that we got as a present for Christmas and as a sort of wedding present combo, it never worked. And so I spent money on 3 mechanics and trying to get it fixed. And now we actually have a working one. And so it's very cool. But basically, hikes. Epic marathon streams where we're hiking the whole time and still engaging in these kind of long form interviews, bringing people back, going in deeper, working through contradictions, and ultimately immersing ourselves in these fields that we're fascinated by or challenged by. That process doesn't have to be one that you take sitting down. And I think Cesar is probably one of our favorite examples of somebody who, when he joins by Zoom calls, is often doing physical activities. But, you know, we've also had Michelle Garner, like washing dishes, like on, like in there, we could see her while I'm lecturing, I see her washing dishes. I love that. Multitasking is the only way. Look, if you like to sit there and take notes the whole time, that's great. Chances are, though, you're passive multitasking, and that's not as great as getting off of your ass and going and actually doing something with your hands. And we're about integrating this like life of the mind with the sort of practical, like hands-on approach. What's that, Nance?
The life of the mind and the life of the body. Yeah. We can't forget about the embodied subject, and that's a tendency that we're prone to.
Yeah. And so right now I am not as healthy as I would be if these epic marathon streams were being done while I'm hiking. And with the 24/7 streaming capabilities, I could be overlaid as I'm out and about, so that it's like I have like this extra incentive to get out and about while doing this 24/7 streaming stuff, meaning I'm there in the chat, but I'm also like physically engaged in doing stuff. And then one of my favorite things that I look forward to being able to do would be segments where we just listen to a book for a few hours while doing something physical like skateboarding or hiking or what have you. And then you go back to this sort of canon TU content.
Dude. And some of our, I don't want to say best in the sense of like we got the best reading done, but some of the most, I don't know, special, if you know, some of the ones that mean the most to me, not just like intellectually, but also like emotionally, reading sessions were in public. We're on the train. In fact, we've had multiple readings on the trains in New York and in Berlin. Or not, that wasn't Berlin, that was Poland. That was in Krakow, where we're on the public transit reading theory, reading Baudrillard, reading McLuhan, and sharing that with people. Like we can actually do that because we have videos, or reading Byung-Chul Han in the pouring rain. Like we have video, and reading Baudrillard or Gnosko on the road, you know, on the highway. Like we have all these unique reading sessions that just sit because it takes so long to upload and incorporate. If we have the IRL streaming capability, we can whip out the book and, you know, and share that with people. Because I fucking love that shit, dude. I love reading McLuhan on the fucking subway, dude. I love reading Baudrillard on the bus. Like those are things that, I don't know, they're just so special. Those are moments. Those are like once in a lifetime moments.
Yeah.
That we know about, but like the audience on YouTube, and maybe they won't give a shit, and that's cool, but I'm sure someone else out there would see it and give a shit, or maybe it would inspire them to be like, oh, I can do that too. I can go outside and find other people and like create moments with other people. Fuck yeah, I'm gonna go do that. I'll see you later. Let me turn off this computer, or let me put my phone down, or let me pull my headphones out of my ear. Like getting back to the embodied subject.
Right. Ian Wenzel said, go for a walk and learn something. And then he said, finding clearings. And I really
straight up,
that.
Ian.
And then Weird Solowski said, oh, that's what you guys mean. Away from the desk. That's a good idea in the plain sense. It engages people.
Yeah.
And what I want to be able to do is like, because I mean, you guys don't even realize, like I listen to books all day, every day. I want to up my game when I'm listening. So I'm not just doing chores or playing Minecraft and listening to a book.
Yep.
I want to be listening to a book and then summarizing what I'm talking about on stream, or like what I'm getting from it, posing critical questions the way we do with exegeticals, and doing it kind of with others, but then also like take a break from that and just actually go engage with the text myself while rolling some lecture that's already happened that people haven't had access to or don't know about, buried in some playlist somewhere. And so that people who are on stream, they listen to part of a book with me, and then I roll some lecture that they didn't even know about, or maybe it bears repeating. And then I come back on a couple hours later. I've got a bunch of notes that I took as I went back over something from that reading or something that related to that reading. This is a sort of immersive approach that for me will raise me to a higher level, which will raise the level on the content, but at the same time does something to catalyze a lot of you all into doing something more. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Like that's a huge part of it. I think it's easy on the internet to find, I don't know, for lack of a better term, theory bros who claim to be above it all, right? But they're not. And I'm not going to name names, but there's one that jumps straight into my mind, and I know it jumps into your mind too, Dave, when we talk about this stuff. But like you can perform being above it all. But if you just continue to do the same thing, even though you may feel like you're above it all. You're not. You're just doing the same thing, except you're doing it ironically or cynically. You're not doing it sincerely. I think like sincerely trying to break out and trying to demonstrate this process to other people. I think like if nothing else, if you remain unconvinced of everything, I think seeing how we're trying to fuck with the medium would kind of shock you into being like, well, at least they're doing something different. You know, I think it is different, and that matters. That difference matters.
100%. 100%. Adrenochrome Dreams says world therapy and kumbaya anti-intellectualism of arm's length politicism. And MA 512, shout out by the way for that amazing timestamp table of that timestamp table of contents that you did on the last epic marathon. Oh my god, for the September stew. That is the best table of contents timestamp thing that anybody's ever done. We used to have one guy who would come around and do them sometimes, but like the descriptions weren't helpful for the table, for navigating the table of contents, right? Like they were often kind of like inside jokes and stuff like that. They were helpful in the sense of like better than nothing, but no, a table of contents with timestamps is fucking amazing. So good job to MA 512. Shout out to you. But anyway, I like to call him Frog. I just kind of assume that it's a guy.
Frogman.
I know my metrics, so I assume it's a guy. But Frogman.
Everybody's an American man on the internet. That's the way it works. If you didn't know that, today I learned everyone on the internet is American male.
Yeah, you might technically not be, but insofar as you're on the internet,
you are.
And that's why everyone's trans. That's the real point. Anyway. But Adrenochrome says, in response to Frogman, who said, "What are you saying?" Adrenochrome says, "Words that create transference. There is no virtual causality. Walks are good, though. The petty bourgeois sense of having a life and reading and being an intellectual. Do some praxis. Linguistic acts in social spaces are transferentially causal. To fight the system is to save yourself. Your investment in socius agreement is a limitation. The medium is not captured if you are not." I don't know exactly what you're getting at. I think you're trying to say that what we're encouraging here is some theoretical navel gazing and not real praxis, and that you have an idea of what real praxis is. But also I might be completely misreading you, and that ambiguity in your discourse is something you could always kind of refine, I suppose. But for now, let's just assume that you are saying that this is not praxis, and that this is ultimately what we're talking about is going for walks and imagining having a life. We're talking about changing our fucking material reality, dude. Like literally changing our material reality. Oh, and then you want to talk about like praxis. Well, you can't do that as an individual. So, I mean, yeah, experimenting with the individual collaboratively, like we're talking about here, that is a result of 10 years of research and practice on my part. I don't consider that to be just talking about going on walks. We're talking about like doing something with the medium that's like not really being done. That would be the precondition for actually organizing in some kind of a broader way. But also getting at this whole thing about having conversations, doing interviews, that kind of thing that Nance was getting at. That is absolutely essential to breaking transference. That is absolutely essential to breaking out of parasociality. That is absolutely essential to doing modern empirical anthropology, sociology or anthropology. Anthropology. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe you're all welcome to have your own opinions and stuff, but I'm pretty sure that there's a big difference between going on walks and what we're talking about in terms of what it does with the medium, what it does with the transference, what it does in terms of the potential for people being able to organize. Yeah, you go.
And it's like it's an attempt to create desires. It's just like actually laying out time energy theory. Like, why is that important? Because it gives words to something that people, they may feel at some like base intuitive level, but they can't put it to words, and so they don't deal with this lack. They don't organize around this lack because it's just like a vague sense. So actually putting it to words is creating the awareness of a lack, and it's creating a desire. And so, like, playing with the medium, it's interacting with you know, YouTube audience, but it's also interacting with people who never see this shit on YouTube. It's interacting with my neighbors, with people in the community, with people I might randomly bump into. So it's kind of doing work on both ends. And part of the internet thing is creating desire to show you may not be aware of the fact that you do spend too much time behind a desk. Because you may be engaged in like critical work. You may be doing great work, but if that's all you're ever doing, you're not going anywhere. So it's bringing awareness to a lack, or at least attempting to, right? Because we could be huffing farts here. We could be blowing smoke up our own asses. That remains true.
Adrenochrome dude says, was irritated by the book reading and the arm's lengthness with theory as almost uncool.
Theory is not cool.
Yeah.
Theory's lame.
Yeah. We're over it, man. In fact,
theory sucks. I hate books, dude.
Too. Yeah.
Let's burn books, dude.
Yeah.
Let's
I don't even
them.
See the point. Actually, I would like to burn books. I'd like to burn.
I'm going to burn this book.
Books. That one book. Definitely. Yeah, Capital's.
This is so lame.
Dude, why would getting in a habit and actually learning how to understand capital, like what would be the point of that? He's dead, man. He's an old dead white man.
That guy's dead, dude. All we have to do, like, you know what? I'll bet someone made a video essay about it. I'm going to find a video essay that tells me everything I need to know, and then I'll just watch all those video essays. That's all I'm ever going to do, as a matter of fact. You're right, guy.
Yeah.
See you later. I'm logging off. I'll never see you again.
Adrenochrome says, individual can sell drugs. That's radical political action in terms of cognitive security for the community. All right. At this point, I feel like I'm either being trolled or I'm talking to an intellectual toddler. You're getting timed out for 24 hours or being hidden from the channel. I'm sorry. Like, at that point, if you think that drugs are radical, I just don't care. I feel like we're all wasting our time trying to have a serious conversation with you. Because come back when you've grown up is the point. Like, for real, come back when you've grown up. But Nance, why don't you think that selling drugs is radical? Whatever. I don't know. Like, let's hit on that and then switch gears.
Like, is that genuine, or was it like an ironic, like, oh, opium for the masses? I don't know. But
here's my thing, man. I like to seriously engage, and people say, oh, you're like letting yourself get trolled. And then it's like, yeah, but I like to assume that the person is coming from a genuine place. But at the point that the person is saying that all we're talking about is going on long walks and that selling drugs is more radical, they are so far from getting it that it's like, you're going to have to burn out, friend. You're going to have to burn out. You're going to have to undergo some subjective destitution. You're going to have to probably level up like 3 Pokemon phases. We'll see you when you're 35 or acting like it. Okay. But in the meantime, this is like some 17-year-old anarcho, whatever. We don't care. So, but let's bring it all back around and then close out. Cause in the next 5 minutes, we're going to what?
Read Asafale. And he's gone to practice. Gone to praxis, one assumes.
I hope that he's doing some praxis, because
for sure.
You know, that's the thing, man. Like, you can waste a lot of your life doing drugs, and I just like I've lost friends to it. You know, and I'm not like, it's not like I've been straight edge for a long time, but I've always been against hard drugs because I've just lost friends to them. And I've always understood that my drive is one that could easily be hijacked. And in fact, one of my students recently was talking about how, drugs can really help you. And what I say students, like at the university campus, was talking about how drugs can really help you see beyond things and kind of break out of your sort of social shackles. And it's like, that is like this pseudo simulacrum, or I will not pseudo simulacrum, but this is a simulacrum of transgression. This is like literally inherent transgression. It's like, oh, be a consumer, but even more so. That's what you're talking about. And sure, like I would love if I could be like Justin Murphy describes and sit there and alternate between different substances to be a better writer. But until I see like some amazing book that Murphy's put out, I'm going to take everything he's saying about how great of a writer you can be with Adderall and sleeping drugs and all this shit that he's using to binge writing. I'm going to take all of that with a grain of salt. I'm not going to say that he's not working on, I'm not going to say, oh no, Justin Murphy's got no amazing book in the works. But I am going to say, if he's just going off of his newsletter, then he's no better than Walt Bismarck, the dude on Substack, the right winger.
Walt Wright.
If Walt Wright or Justin Murphy thinks that their little newsletter project is like avant-garde writing and that the drugs, that they actually need the Adderall to be able to do it, I just want to say, like, guys, I
but
write.
they're autists.
Artists. No, guys, you don't need it. I know you feel like you need it, but you don't need it. And the fact is until you drop the next Being in Time or Critique of Pure Reason or even Negrestani's like Intelligence and Spirit, until you drop something that's remarkable, I'm not going to take like, hey, you should use these substances to do great writing. Oh, where is the great writing? Could you show me where your great writing is? Because so far, everybody who's saying that the Adderall is helping them do great writing, I'm like, where is it?
So I actually on Reddit the other day was talking to a young, seemingly young, I don't know, but a young sounding hardcore kid. I was in the hardcore subreddit. We were talking about straight edge and I was like, yeah, straight edge is lame, but also I'm sober. Like I'm functionally straight edge, but I don't care about the identifier, but I'm not functionally straight edge because I do eat gummies, maybe 2 nights a week at least. I do chew tobacco almost all day long, every day. But I'm not invested in, the fact of whether or not am I a user. And I do, in fact, I love drugs and I love to get weird. I just understand that that's not a generative thing. It's not like, oh, I'm going to do these drugs and they're going to unlock something. And it's like drugs are a recreational activity, and recreational in this Adornian sense, when he's talking about leisure time. And I do think it's cool in moderation. And if you're the type of person who has the libidinal economy where you could do things in moderation, fucking have at it, dude. But like, I am not. I definitely am all or nothing. So I refrain from drugs because I overdo it. Like, I think cocaine is a miracle substance. I also know that if I were to start using cocaine again, I wouldn't be productive. I would lie to myself and I would say, this is keeping me up. This is giving me the energy. This is helping me write all the things I'm trying to write right now. When in reality, if I would even have the discipline to sit down and write, it would be mindless babble. I want to work with other people who understand that we are trying to be clear-headed. We are trying to be sober, critical thinkers. We're not just trying to get weird. I love weird shit, but there's a fucking time and place for weird shit. Yeah. And theory,
get a room.
Actually trying to do it for real is not the time and place to get fucking weird. It's weird enough already. I already question everything and I'm stone cold sober.
Yeah. And that's especially true, compounded, if you care about doing anything to develop a new approach, to develop a new theory and practice, to develop something that has some genuine potential to affect things at the large scale structural level, right? And so, Asa Fail says sober versus evangelical. Ian says so true. Yeah, guys, we're gonna close this out. I have some summary statement. I have a summary statement to make that is going to quilt itself in what Nance was just motioning. But thank you all for being here. At the end of this, you will get redirected into the premiere of these 3 theorists in 3 phases. Amazing, amazing episode. We absolutely love this episode that we're about to premiere. We're very proud of it, and also our friend Terrence for being able to produce it. But let's get into it. So we talked about profilicity. We talked about the general peer versus the big other. We talked about the post-class fractured mass. We talked about the need to do alien anthropology. We didn't really make the connection between the need to do alien anthropology and what we're talking about with the 24/7 IRL stream. But the basic idea is like, we're talking about getting away from the desk during these things. We're talking about gaming the algorithm in a way that creates and institutionalizes aspects of the lecturing that's been kept behind the scenes here at TU, and sort of rolling it out in a way where people who aren't navigating the playlists in a thoughtful manner are going to sort of get so many important things ground into them, and it'll be an amazing sort of induction into the world of theory, and at the same time that we'll be deconstructing our general peers and big others by getting out there and putting actual research instruments developed using contemporary social science methods into practice with actual people, where it's not just like, oh, what's your opinion? But actually we kind of get to the heart of various aspects of critical media theory, time energy theory, and the creation of new desires that are antithetical to consumerism at this base level that capitalism assumes by keeping us all sort of these passive consumers and workers, right? That most of the consumption that is passive is because we are disposing of our garbage time as we are recreationally recreating our labor power so we can go back to work, and we're supposed to be satisfied. But time energy theory renders that unsatisfiable because it makes us realize, oh, there are higher human capacities, talents that I have not been able to discover or cultivate, relationships that are going dormant or never even got built in the first place, and that I would need time energy to be able to do that. As Ian said in the chat, you would need time energy to do great writing. None of us are under some delusion that we are amazing writers or anything like that, because we don't have the time energy to do the things that we want to do. And we're not going to have it by just sitting back and saying, yes, let's kick into a leisurely mode. No, we're going to keep being Benjamin Franklin out here. We're going to keep being Nicholas Tesla out here. We're going to keep pushing the medium and grinding and building and experimenting and at the same time disseminating concepts that render unsatisfiable this entire situation at the same time that we come into a better understanding of it. And to that end, we need these IRL stream backpacks. To that end, we actually need money. And so, yeah, if you are sitting on a big chunk of change, do send it our way, because this is the time. Basically, the live view thing that I need costs $1,000. Nance and I each need one, and then we probably need like a couple more $1,000 just to buy the other equipment, and also to be able to experiment with the various virtual servers that we're going to have to use through trial and error to figure out how to do this stuff smoothly. And so if you're looking to see the scene go to becoming a milieu, if you're interested in seeing these experiments come true, if you're interested in any of the stuff that we've been talking about, and you have got deeper pockets, right now is the time. So I think there's a PayPal me link in the description. So that's where to find that. Nance, any closing thoughts on all of that?
Yeah. If you are sitting out there with whatever size surplus of money, and you have been waiting, and you've been waiting to hear the words, the time is now. the time is now. And it's not like I imagine there are very many people like that out there, but if there are any of you out there, the time is now. It is a pivotal moment. We are trying to, like you said, be Benjamin Franklin, be Tesla, create a new mechanism for all of us. And that comes at the cost of, time, labor, experimentation, intellectual shit. It also comes at the cost of money, like real actual money. Rest assured, it will happen. Something will happen. We are fucking bound and determined to make something happen. But like right now is it could be like an inflection point. Like if you are waiting to get in the pit right now, a breakdown is starting and it's about to open up.
With that, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Take care.
We cannot do direct revolution, but the only way to lay the foundation for it is to do what you are doing to move the underground. It's a theoretically correct title.
Welcome to Theory Underground, a place for workers with earbuds who are tired of letting others read and think on their behalf, slipstreaming our way into an understanding of the situation that short-circuits the deadlocks of our moment.
Research at Theory Underground focuses on what is most important for understanding our current situation: theory of the subject, capital, time-energy theory, critical media theory, CMT, and the most essential critiques necessary for understanding why the theory, ideology, and common sense of influencers left to right misses the mark.
Theory Underground is coming to a city near you. What that has meant in the last year is traveling across the United States, into Canada, and then all over Europe to promote our books, courses, and ideas related to time energy and underground theory. You've been reading Underground Theory.
I'm a publisher and an editor. I run and review books. Literally, it's my living. This is the best edited collection I've ever read.
Okay, picture this scene. America, early 2021. An Amazon warehouse worker arises from the emerging underground theory internet scene to create spaces for untimely topics and concerns that are too often neglected or kept in isolation today. Joined by a revolving cast of underground theorists, academics, and critics, he establishes what will become Theory Underground, a teaching, research, and publishing platform by and for working class intellectuals, autodidacts, and academics who want to do more than they're able to do within the confines of academia. That warehouse worker's name is David McKerracher, and his book Time Energy is his first major contribution to the world of theory. It was recently reprinted with a foreword by none other than Slavoj Žižek, who also contributed to Theory Underground's latest book.
My Bible, it's an excellent book.
A collection of essays called Underground Theory.
What you just heard is an excerpt from the Strange Exiles podcast, episode 23, where Bram from Strange Exiles interviewed me and Mikey. For those who don't know, Mikey is the author of the Dangerous Maybe blog. We are publishing one of his books here shortly at Theory Underground. He's also a lecturer at Theory Underground, and he's someone I've been friends and a collaborator with for over 10 years. But most importantly for you all, he's a fantastic lecturer, and it's a crime that he has to do wage labor right now. One of the long-term goals of Theory Underground has been now for a couple of years to hashtag free Mikey. That is something that I've been really pushing, but first I had to get freed from wage labor, which was achieved this year. That's right. Thanks to my monthly seminar subscribers, I was able to quit Amazon and do Theory Underground full time. Now I'm announcing the next big phase of the plan, which is the Mikey Down seminar. What monthly subscribers to the Mikey seminar are paying for is a survey of philosophy, including deep dives into Zizek, Land, Lacan, Baudrillard, Bataille, Lyotard, and